Good morning, and thank you for joining me once again. It's Thursday, and every Thursday you can catch me at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 Eastern Time, and of course my written word every Monday on globalwealthprotection.com. So the issue today, or this week, has been that of safety, and I think it's worth exploring just a little bit further than I probably have, only because I think it's still confused as a right by many. Not necessarily you or me, for that matter, because I certainly don't believe it is. Safety is a sense or feeling. That's why you can feel safe, okay? But I cannot touch safe unless it's an actual safe, in which case, no, you're not entitled to have one on anyone's dime. But in terms of safety, feeling safe is what it is. It's a feeling. And so when you say, or anyone says, I don't feel safe going outside, which is it's usually accompanied by, or it's not safe to go outside because X, Y, Z. It's a feeling, right? Now, it could very well be true that it's not safe to go outside. I'm not saying it's an incorrect feeling. I'm simply saying it is a feeling, and it's subjective. Okay. Now, the only feeling that's ever brought up, even on a statey level, right, is happiness. And while the framers went out of their way to include that in the, in the Declaration of Independence, they didn't say you have a right to be happy. No, you don't. Sorry. You have a right to pursue it, though, with everything you've got. Now, and I encourage everyone to do it, but certainly you don't have a right unto itself to be happy. Okay? Because to have a right is to have an entitlement. But specific to a right as an entitlement is that it comes at the cost of no one else to exercise. For example, I have a right to life. I have a right to live. It doesn't cost you anything for me to live, because it's not a zero-sum game that if I live, you must die. Okay, this is not some fantastic trance that we're all under. This is reality, and reality says that if I live, that doesn't mean you have to die. Okay, now, in circumstances where, in order for someone to live, someone must die, and there are circumstances like that, it's not like I deny it. That means someone is going to die anyway, right? So, for example, I see a bus whose brakes are clearly broken and they're out of control. I see a kid who's frozen in the street and won't get out. So, I decide voluntarily to jump in front of the bus, push the child out of the way, and ultimately the child lives, but I die. Had I not done that, the child would have died, and I would have lived. Okay? So it was more of a trade in that sense, but it was a voluntary one, and it had nothing to do with rights as much as it had to do with volition. Now, I have a right to defend myself. I'm not asking you to defend me. I'm saying I have a right to defend myself as I see fit. Now, I might go out and practice a martial art. I might pack a can of mace or pepper spray. I might go get a gun. Who knows? But whatever it is that makes me feel safer and helps me protect myself from would-be assailants is my right. I'm not asking you to pay for it. I'm not asking you to do anything about it. You can go about your business. You can wake up the next day to your alarm, still set your snooze button for 15 more minutes, wake up, go through your morning routine, go to work, come back, pet your dog, kiss your wife, have your dinner, go to sleep, and never know that I went through those measures to protect myself because it doesn't affect you in any way. I have a right to ingest whatever I want, feed myself, sustain myself, please myself, whatever it is. I can ingest whatever it is I want. I can do it for nutritional purposes, I can do it for recreational purposes, whatever it is, until such time as my practices start to infringe upon your rights. That's my right. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't involve anything with you. That makes it a right. It's an entitlement that I have, that I claim for myself and go out of my way to exercise. Okay? But what doesn't happen is, and what a right is not, is the brand of political entitlement that says that the welfare fairy is going to drop some shit off at your door because you wished it into the universe that you should have it. Which is why education is not a right, in the sense that I'm obliged to give it to you. You are free to pursue it, and we'll just put education under the big umbrella of safety and happiness. Does it make you happy to learn things? Does it make you feel more fulfilled? Does it feel like you're self-actualizing in the process? Fantastic. Go seek the knowledge. Are you entitled to an education at the expense of someone else? No, you are not. No, you are not. This is why healthcare is not a right, because yes, you have every right to go seek care and pay whatever it is to get it. But no, you are not entitled for me to pay for your health care. Okay? And so the same principle applies with safety. Do you have a right to pursue the feeling of safety? Absolutely. Like I said, whatever measure necessary that you feel is appropriate for you and your family, or your household, if you have friends and family or whatever, that's what you have a right to. Do you have a right to that at my expense? No, you do not. Right? So basically, you don't have a right to my wallet to make sure that you have or achieve a certain feeling, which is why you don't have a right to be safe. You have a right to pursue it. Okay? You had a right to be safe, then if you bang your toe in the middle of the night while trying to get a glass of water, we all failed you as a society in keeping you fucking safe. So that's an impossible task to impose upon a society. If you think healthcare is impossible, yeah, it is. Go ahead and inject that with a few shots of steroids and try to achieve safety. Let me tell you what happens when safety becomes the prerogative of the government. You get the Patriot Act, you get NDAA, you get the NSA spying on your shit, you get the TSA groping your shit. That's not something you want to outsource. Okay? You get rogue, not even rogue actually, I misspeak. They're not rogue officers. They're just doing their jobs. Rogue would mean they weren't doing their jobs. So in point of fact, a cop who is rogue, who would be a cop who doesn't do his job. Certainly something to put on the wish list for Christmas. But look at what happens when we outsource safety as a right that the government should be giving you, right? That society should be giving you, that tax dollars are responsible for providing. Every time we try to lay claim to something and say it's a right, you ultimately just get a steamy pile of shit. Think about it. Social Security, it wasn't meant to be a retirement plan. Certainly. It never claimed to be. But certainly it isn't enough to live off of anyway. So it isn't much of anything. I mean, if I wanted to save up enough not to live off of it, I could have done that without a social program. You know, I mean, most people can. Anybody can save up not enough. You talk about the lowest financial bar ever. There's it. There it is. Not saving enough. Okay. So it's saving enough. That's where it requires a little bit more savvy and a little bit more frugality, a little bit more economic sense. Education. You have to pardon me if we're the country that spends the second most on education in the world, only to be outdone by Switzerland. But Switzerland actually does better in terms of overall educating their kids and their citizenry. When I was living in Japan, there was only like a 40% attendance rate for university. People weren't going to university. They need to. If you pass your exit exams in high school, it's tantamount to say you basically are as smart as an American who has a college degree. No joke. Why do you think these 16, 18-year-old kids are committing suicide over these damn tests? So their education system's better, but they don't spend nearly as much as we do. And they go to school 6 days a week. Now, in terms of the United States government providing you an education, we're in a race for dead last. We suck. But education's a right, so now we have a right to suck. We have a right to just be derpy, but have these large institutions strewn all over our country, incarcerating our kids like little mini prisoners, preparing them for fucking prison, for God's sake. This is what happens when education became a right that you expected from the government. Education is not a right. It's a good, just like healthcare. What's happening with healthcare? Well, for as much as Canadians love to fucking tout their healthcare, perhaps they're not seeing the transition between getting a doctor and getting a nurse. That's right. Doctors are being relegated to specialized fields because they don't have enough general practice doctors out there. We don't have enough general practice doctors, but they sure as fuck don't. Okay. So instead, because people are going to medical school, they are graduating with degrees and they're doing well as doctors, they're just not joining general practice. They're going into specialty because that's where the money's at. Well, shit, can't blame them. I would too. If I go through all that shit and all I got to do is just focus on one thing, rather than take in a room full of random ass people who are sick with random ass shit, I'd rather have the predictable, high paying job. That just makes sense. So that's where everybody's gravitating toward. So who else is left to take the triage? Well, nurses, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, but not doctors. You don't get the doctor. So there aren't any doctors. Not actually. You could be getting healthcare. And I'm not saying that a nurse is not well qualified. Okay? I'm just saying you're not getting a doctor. Whereas at one point you had an opportunity, and here's an example, you had an opportunity to take a luxury limousine from A to B. Now that everyone gets this transportation, you get the city bus. Okay? It still gets you from A to B, but you probably have a few little kinks in the system, if that's all right with you. But at least, hey, somebody's getting you from A to B. Somebody's treating you. Right? A nurse could probably be qualified to do most things. General things. You have an earache, chances, that's pretty generic. You have, a rash, they might be able to diagnose it. They certainly can write a prescription. They can mend a little, boo-boo. They can probably, they can do a lot of things that the general public needs. So I'm not saying that there's no need for nurses. I'm saying that by and large, what used to be a doctor's job is slowly being supplanted by nursing staff. Okay. So you get a little less, But hey, everybody gets it. And that seems to be the case with everything. Now here comes safety, right? Safety, for some reason, is something that, I mean, and look, I don't blame human nature. Human nature says, I want to be safe. Of course I want to be safe. Self-preservation, right? I did that. That makes perfect sense. That feeling of wanting to preserve yourself and feel safe is absolutely normal. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Okay, and please don't try to subdue that. It's what keeps you alive. Okay, you need that. Keep the instinct. The instinct isn't what's wrong. What's wrong is who's supposed to do that for you. Okay, do you have a right to eat? Certainly. Do you have a right to eat at my expense? No, you don't. So safety, because it varies, right? It varies person to person. Look, I could wager that a man who's about 6 foot and change, weighs 200 and change, and is fit, probably doesn't fear the mugger the way a 5'4", $1.15, $1.10 female who's not really in any great shape walking down the same street. So whereas he'd be fine with his bare hands and feel perfectly secure in his person, I might want to pack pepper spray. Right? Okay, so it's relative from person to person. He's not more important. He's not better. I'm not better. I'm not more important. But it might take a little more to protect me because I might potentially be a victim as opposed to him, right? I mean, I might just in general look to the criminal eye to be more vulnerable. I don't know. But whatever it is, if that's my perception of my circumstances, then I'm going to behave accordingly and I'm going to defend myself accordingly and take those measures. Because it varies from person to person, to say then, with these gun advocates, that we should be disarming people in the name of safety is just a matter of the subjectiveness of safety trumping in the vote. Right? Now, let's go through the entire US population out there. And basically what we're going to say is, raise your hand if guns make you feel safe. That's what this is. Do guns make you feel safe? Now, the skilled marksman is going to say, hells yes. The children of skilled marksmen are probably going to say, hells yes. Because they're probably going to learn. The people who say, well, I don't know how it is for you, but for me, I probably don't need one. I've got a bodyguard with guns, so I'm good. I don't need to buy one myself. That would be the politician, right? Maybe even some celebrities. But to say, guns make me feel unsafe, no one should have one, that's a little, I mean, you need to suppress your inner tyrant there a little bit, don't you think? I mean, if you don't want to use a gun and they don't make you feel safe, they make you feel like you're in danger of something, then by all means don't get one. Right? And certainly don't roll with a crowd who does. But guns, like smoking, is a personal preference. If you don't like smokers, don't hang out with smokers. If you don't like drinkers, don't hang out with drinkers. But certainly don't tell people no one can smoke and no one can drink. I mean, I will personally tell you, I feel very uncomfortable around people who are inebriated. I do. I feel very uncomfortable around them. Personal confession. And by and large, I've always been the designated driver because I can't hold my liquor to save my life. But it does make me feel very uncomfortable. Not so uncomfortable that I would say I'm never going to go out with my friends and, let them get a little tipsy or whatever. But they're also my friends. I don't go to parties where I don't know anybody and people are getting fucked up, though. That's a personal preference. I don't feel safe under those circumstances, so I don't do that. I don't hang out with people who need to be drunk on a regular basis in order to function. I don't. I don't care what you do, but I care what I do, and I can't be involved with that, right? But it's a personal safety thing. I don't like it, so I don't do it. But clearly there are some people who aren't bothered by it at all. So they do hang out with people who drink or people who smoke or people who do whatever. And that's okay. To each their own. But to each their own means I can't outlaw it for everybody else because it makes me feel uncomfortable. Now, there is the matter of school shootings, right? And I will say, and it's not to trivialize school shootings. Okay, this has nothing to do with trivializing it. And I don't like the idea that the opinion of guns has somehow been tied to our opinions on children being safe. There are several factors involved that have nothing to do with gun ownership. One of which is that you've got an institution, okay, where the majority of the population is underaged and helpless, sitting safely within these walls like fish in a fucking barrel. I mean, I don't know. Does that sound like you're setting them up to be safe? I wouldn't feel safe doing that. Okay? Take a step back and understand that you're not supposed to look through the eyes of a rational, moral human being. You're looking at the world. If you want to try and anticipate where the danger is, you don't look through the lens of a rational human being who wouldn't hurt anybody. If you want to anticipate where the danger is, you look through the lens of a would-be criminal, right? And a would-be criminal doesn't see, oh, our precious future is in those walls. Those sweet faces. Those children. Oh, aren't they adorable? Look, the backpack is bigger than the child. Ah, that's adorable. No, that's not how you're looking at a school. You're looking at a school as potential victims. A criminal's going shopping, okay? They're not taking in the glory of life. They're casing the school, okay? But a criminal has already shown that they have no regard for the law. They have no regard for your moral code. They have no regard for your safety, okay? I have enough regard for your safety to at least be able to say, do you? Whatever you need to do it. God bless. You don't even have to justify it to me. You want to tell me you've got a bunker and you've got an arsenal of shit and you've got good for you. High five. And you're all set. May I be barbecuing at your house when the shit goes down. That's all I can hope for. Okay? But at least I have enough regard for your safety not to tell you not to go do that or legislate against it. This is the thing with school shootings. You're dealing with a criminal element that already doesn't care what the law is on killing. What makes you think that they care about the law on gun ownership? If they have such a low regard for what the law says about property regulation in terms of life, why do you think that they would say, well, while I'm willing to totally take a life here, I'm not some gun stealer. Even I have my own scruples. I think once you're willing to commit murder, the notion of scruples kind of goes out the window, right? I mean, what makes you think? What makes anyone think that there'd be some regard for gun laws while that same person has no regard for human life? I mean, that takes a certain either a certain amount of delusion, or it takes an exorbitant amount of status hubris to think that a criminal would ever think that way. I understand that on its face it seems somewhat intuitive that if guns kill people, we should get rid of guns. There's a lot of things that kill people, least of which is guns. But the irony is much like economics, okay? In economics, it's not economically sound, and it doesn't stimulate the economy on any sustainable level, all right, to tell everybody to go spend their money. Well, why not? If everybody's spending their money, everybody's making money. And spending for the sake of spending is not sustainable economic policy. Frugality, saving, is actually more sound. It's more economically sound to be frugal and save than it is to spend. Counterintuitive? Possibly. But if you play it all the way through, frugality and saving makes more sense. Okay. It's more sustainable. It creates a more self-sufficient population. Right? It eliminates the welfare state. So, likewise with guns. Well, you want to solve the gun problem, you got to get rid of the guns. No. If you want to get rid of the gun problem, the problem being people misusing them, right? Guns unto themselves are not a problem. They're an inanimate object. The problem with guns is that people are misusing them. So if the misuse of guns is the problem, then proper gun education is step one. And step two is a well-educated gun-toting society. It's the great equalizer. Right? If Mr. 6'2", over 200 pounds, piece of beef comes at me, nearly twice my size, I'm certainly not taking them on physically and expecting to win. Now, the final argument is the idea that when you buy a gun, you're essentially saying you're prepared to kill people. And to some extent, that might be true. But criminologists have already found that the mere presence of a gun is a greater deterrent to violent crime than the actual use of one. So, just having the gun is a greater deterrent than not having the gun. That you're willing to use it, well, ultimately, somebody might call your bluff. But think of the circumstances under which you would do it. So you see somebody attacking their family. Somebody's trying to attack you. Somebody's invading your home. And they, and I was told, well, breaking and entering is not a capital crime. Oh, it is in my house. It is in my house. I'm sorry. Other people might not think it's a capital offense to violate my home. I do. And when you come to my house, you can test the theory. Rape's also not a capital crime by state standards, but I'll be damned if I'm going to tell any person who gets attacked by would-be rapists that they're not allowed to kill their assailant. Yes, you may. Okay? Self-defense is self-defense, and there are no limits to that. But it's self-defense for a reason, not social defense, not collective defense. It's self-defense because you are in danger, and therefore you have a right to pursue your sense of happiness. And pursue your sense of happiness might entail pursuing your sense of safety. Safety is a feeling, not a right. You can go pursue it to whatever extent you wish, just not at the expense of others. If it requires somebody else's wallet has to come out in order for you to have it, then you better ask, and it better be voluntary, or it's theft. All right, that's it for me this week. I'm not sure if I'm going to be on next Thursday because it's kind of Thanksgiving and it's a day of laziness and gluttony. But if I am, I'll see you next week. If not, I'll see you the week after. All right, take it easy. Bye.